We'll see. Um, Moving on. We're gonna hit a couple more things on here. Do you guys want to take a little break first and dive back in, or do you want to go straight into All Stars? What do you think?
I'm good.
Yeah, Paul?
Well, yeah. Keep it rolling.
All right. Let's keep it rolling then. All-Star finalists were announced earlier today. The fan voting portion of the All-Star balloting period ended earlier this afternoon. MLB.com released the finalists for each position. I was taking a look at these. I was kind of making my All-Star ballot earlier today and then realized that they were closing the balloting, so I didn't actually submit one. But looking at the finalists, I feel like we can all three of us kind of just take a look at each one and sort of give our piece to. We'll do like a lightning round. How about this, where we kind of decide I'll list the names, then you two give your choices for which guy you would take, and then I'll chime in with mine as well. So we'll start with, give me one moment, I'm pulling these up. We'll start with the AL. We'll start at catcher. Alejandro Kirk is the first finalist, Alejandro Kirk of the Toronto Blue Jays. And then the second finalist of the New York Yankees, the aforementioned New York Yankees, Jose Trevino. Trevino, that's a name you're not really used to hearing in the All-Star conversations, neither for Kirk, for that matter. Kirk's actually had a great year in Toronto, though. I was kind of looking at his numbers earlier. At the moment, he's hitting over 300. He's got an OPS over 900, double-digit homers, 30 RBIs. It's not easy to do from the catcher's position. I feel like Salvador Perez, with the season he had last year, kind of spoiled us. What do you fellas think?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely Kirk out of the two. I do think Trevino's defense is much, much better, and I think he has the best ERA among any catchers in the league. But, I mean, Kirk's numbers of 900-plus OPS from the catching position.
Right.
Got to give the nod to him there.
Paul, any controversy or
No, I don't think there's any controversy. I don't watch quite as much American League Baseball, I think, as you guys. So I'm not as versed in, who ideally is best catcher. But I mean, based on the stats you guys threw out there, I would tend to agree. It's just refreshing to me that Salvador Perez did not win another All-Star vote, because it seemed like that guy. I mean, he's a phenomenal catcher. What he did last year was unreal. But it seemed like that guy was the number one vote for like 5 or 6 years straight.
He's probably the best catcher of this past decade, I would say. He's up there, Posey's up there, but Posey didn't play quite as many games. I think that would be maybe a difference maker. Posey has 2 more rings, or maybe just 1 more ring in the last 10 years than Salvi. I need to go and double check. I know Posey has 3, but I think one of them fell in 2011, which would have been whatever. NL catchers.
You better hope that no St. Louis fans are listening to this. I can't Yadier Molina, but they would be quite pissed off for you not throwing his name out there.
Absolutely. No, he's got to be in that conversation too. He's got to be. It would be disrespectful not to put his name in there. On the NL side, Wilson Contreras and Travis d'Arnaud are the finalists for the catcher position. This has got to be Wilson's year. I mean, he's been incredible. He's getting thrown around in trade discussions a lot right now because the Cubs have been awful. The Red Sox start a 3-game series with them in Chicago tomorrow, by the way. I mean, very similar numbers to Kirk's, a little bit better, perhaps. Any disagreements from you two?
Nope, I think it's Wilson.
Oh, yeah. But that is a guy I've seen a good amount, with the Cubs being in the Pirates division. I can completely agree there. And his days are numbered in Chicago. That is for sure. Absolutely.
We've got first baseman for the AL. I have Mr. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and Ty France from the Seattle Mariners. France has actually put together a good year despite the Mariners not having the year that some thought they would. But nothing compares to his numbers don't compare to what Vlad's doing right now. And Vlad isn't really having, I mean, I don't want to say a not Vlad standard year. He only has a couple years in the big leagues. And he's still hitting pretty incredibly right now, but it's not quite as dominant as it was last year.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's other first basemen you can throw in the mix, but it's probably Vlad right now. I mean, Abreu, Rizzo, they're still having good years, but probably Vladdy's.
I was actually surprised not to see either Rizzo or Abreu in that among the finalists for first baseman. France was an interesting kind of jump for that. NL first baseman Paul Goldschmidt of the St. Louis Cardinals and Pete Alonso of the New York Mets. I actually think this will be the closest race among National League positions because Alonso, Paul, you had a stat about this earlier. Alonso is tied for the NL lead in homers at the moment and has more RBIs than anybody in the majors, whereas Goldschmidt is having a pretty incredible year as well. He's leading the league in hitting, on-base percentage. He's leading the NL in slugging and an OPS. So these guys, I'm very interested to see what kind of season these two guys have for the rest of the year because you could very well see them matching up in a playoff series as well somewhere down the stretch.
Yeah, those guys, I mean, you can flip a coin. I mean, you can't get mad one way or the other between them. I think Goldschmidt kind of deserves it with his average this year, but, I mean, I don't know. You know, you don't make a wrong choice when you choose between those guys with the years they're having.
I'm pretty sure Goldschmidt was leading the NL in most of the offensive statistical categories a couple of weeks ago. I think he was in the lead for homers, RBIs, and average at one point this year.
Pete, I did just look this up. Pete passed him in RBIs recently, but Goldschmidt's average is leading all of the majors right now.
Right. Yeah, he's got to be your choice at first. Really, if it went across leagues, he would probably top Vladdy for me as well at the moment.
Yeah.
AL second baseman Jose Altuve, who's having a phenomenal year, and Santiago Espinal of the Toronto Blue Jays. A lot of Blue Jays vote getters on this list. They've got, of course, all of Canada voting for them in the fan department, so I think that maybe helps a little bit. But Altuve, he's already a 7-time All-Star and 4-time starter, but he hasn't been a starter for the AL since like 2018. So I think he's going to be back there in that starting lineup again this year. He's hitting, what's his numbers right now? He's got an average at only 264, but he's popped 15 homers. He's been hitting right at the top of the lineup for the Astros as well.
Yeah, I probably have Altuve up there, not by a crazy amount. I mean, Espinal defensively is unreal. He's got 10 more RBIs, but probably Altuve. I'd also love to see the ovation he gets in LA. So
yeah, that'll be interesting. That'll be interesting. That's for sure. On the NL side, this is one that I'm going to be somewhat passionate about. You've got Ozzie Albies and Jazz Chisholm Jr. as the NL finalists for second baseman. Albies is having, they're actually pretty close, somewhat. Albies has the Braves fan base voting for him. Chisholm's having a hell of a year at the plate, though. 14 homers, 45 RBIs, 860 OPS. He steals bases. He's got flair. He's got jazz, not just in his name, but also in his play style. I want Jazz Chisholm Jr. to be the next crop of guys like Tatis, Shohei, Vlad. He's one of my favorite players to watch because of the attitude and the spirit he has when he plays. I always find myself tuning into Marlins games just to watch him. And I don't give a shit about Miami or the Marlins. He's just so fun. He deserves to be in the All-Star game, I think.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, second base is actually pretty interesting in the National League. You got Jeff McNeil, and again, I'm not the biggest Jeff fan, but he definitely deserves to be mentioned. I think he's batting like 310, 315. And then another name, I mean, Nolan Gorman, he kind of just came onto the scene too. I don't think he's an all-star yet, but he kind of forced Tommy Edman to move over to short, but Edman probably would have been it if he stayed at second. So, but yeah, I'm with you there with Jazz.
I remember when the Cardinals traded for Nolan Arenado, thinking it was incredible they held on to Gorman, who was, I think, their highest rated prospect at the time. Having those two Nolans and Edman and Goldschmidt in their infield for the next however many years, that's they're going to be around. They're going to be a problem, I think, for a bit. Paul, any thoughts on Jazz Chisholm Jr.?
I mean, you pretty much took the words out of my mouth. I mean, he's got a lot of flair in his game and off the field. I mean, I'm not a Twitter guy, but I know he's pretty active on Twitter, kind of in some jibes back and forth with some guys I've seen, you know, some screenshots, whatnot. I got no problem with him being the second base representative for the National League. And I do think you made a good point. Like, I do think he is entering this wave, if he's not already, you know, this guy who's, like I said, got a lot of flair. You know, Tatis is kind of a good comp in the sense, you know, Tatis, I can't help but remember, you know, when he put his hand over the eye when he hit the ball off of Trevor Bauer. Like, that's the type of stuff that you get from Jazz Chisholm. It brings fans into, you know, to watch the MLB that maybe aren't huge MLB fans. I mean, you alluded to it yourself. You're not a Marlins fan, you have no tie, but, you know, you like tuning into their games just to see him play. So if he gets older and you know, has some more years under his belt in the MLB, I think he's going to become more and more of that guy that can draw your average Joe into watching a baseball game, which is always good for the sport.
Third base in the American League. This is another really close one. Our two finalists are Jose Ramirez of the Cleveland Guardians and Rafael Devers of the Boston Red Sox. I have a little bias in here. I'm just going to here's what I'm going to play. I'm going to play a little game with you two. I'm going to read you the statistics for both of these players. I'm not going to tell you which player holds which statistics, and I want you two to tell me who should get the All-Star nod. So, player one's stat line. In 299 at-bats this year, he has 98 hits, 17 homers, 45 RBIs, with an average of 328 and an OPS of 979. That's player one. I know I just ran a lot of numbers, so if you need me to go back over them after this, I will. So player one again, 98 hits, 17 homers, 45 RBIs, 328 average, 979 OPS. Player two, 80 hits and 270 at-bats, 16 homers, 63 RBIs, a 296 average, and a 977 OPS. The OPSs are 2 points apart. Player one has a lead in the hitting category by about 30 points, but player two has almost 20 more RBIs. Player one's played a few more games, has some more hits under his belt. Player one or player two? Paul, I'm pushing it to you first.
I mean, I'm going to probably defer to player two there because of the gap in RBIs. I can't remember off the top of my head the gap in average there, but home runs for 17 and 16, so I consider that basically a wash. And then I'm always going to look who's going to be driving in runs. So I'll go with player two because of that statistic.
Jason, how about you?
I definitely know which player is which player because I'm a little bit of a nerd, but I would definitely say two categories you did not mention at all are defense and stolen bases, and player two, which is Jose Ramirez, absolutely kills Devers in that. Devers is getting better defensively. He's still not a great third baseman. And Ramirez on the base path, he might not look like a great base stealer, but he can definitely move for his size. And I think he means more to the Guardians' success right now than Devers does to the Red Sox. But again, it is a coin flip, but I would go.
This is going to crush me.
Against you there.
Well, this is going to crush me, but I think you hit the nail on the head. The Guardians are at the moment, I think it's a game out of first place in the AL Central, and that has a lot to do with what Jose Ramirez is doing. He has 12 stolen bases on the year to Rafael Devers 2. Average just under 300, 63 RBIs are near the top of the AL league. He's a 5-tool player. He has been, and he's kind of gone under the radar of other great third basemen in the league, like Arenado and Machado, and you can throw in Matt Chapman in there if you want. And he's kind of putting his name on the map this year. I think it's a contract year for him too. And you know, Devers, God bless him, he's one of the best hitters in the AL. He's hitting the cover off the ball. He's been really hot recently. I think some of the RBI difference has to do with Cleveland having more guys getting on ahead of of Ramirez versus Devers. Devers hits in the 2-hole in Boston. Ramirez hits third for the Indians. So there is like a little bit of a gap there, but at the same time, I am going to have to join y'all in saying it's Jose Ramirez. It has to be. It crushes me because I love Devers and I want him to be in Boston for forever, but I'll be unbiased here. I'll be unbiased.
In my opinion, that one is closer than the NL first baseman, but
I think you're right. I think you're definitely right. Goldschmidt should win that first base race. Third base in the NL, Manny Machado and Nolan Arenado. Two marquee names at the position, two guys that are going to be duking it out over there in the NL for this spot for a few more years at the very least. Machado hitting .328 with 12 homers, 46 RBIs, and OPS at .945. And then Arenado, you know what kind of defense he's bringing. He's got 14 homers, 49 RBIs, hitting right around .280. Pretty similar numbers. Offensively, both incredible players. Defensively, Machado is getting on base a little bit more at the moment. He's getting on base 40% of the time. Does Machado get the edge here? I think it's kind of close again. It's almost like take your pick your poison. Maybe Arenado is slightly more popular with fans or less hated, I should say. I think I would probably choose Machado in this though.
Yeah, I gotta agree there. I mean, the RBIs and home runs are pretty similar, and the average is a big gap for me there. Arenado, I mean, and you know they're both extremely strong defensively. Arenado might have a little bit of edge in defense. I don't know their fielding percentages this year off the top of my head, but I mean Arenado's a Platinum Glove winner, and so but this year I think Machado hit .328. I mean that's pretty special what he's doing this year. So for me. It is close, but I would discernibly say Manny Machado.
Any objections, Jason?
No, I think it's Machado. I mean, the only thing I would say is he's been a little hurt the last few weeks, but I mean, first month and a half, he was batting close to 400. And I mean, I don't think it's too much of a hot take to say that if these guys stay healthy, they both could be future Hall of Famers. So really strong position there.
For sure. I'm going to stick in the NL with our next position. We're going to jump to shortstop. Our finalists are Trey Turner and Dansby Swanson. I think Turner probably wins this, but Swanson has a decent argument for it. Swanson's hitting. No, it's Trey Turner. I can't in good conscience really make an argument for him actually. And actually looking at the numbers, Turner has 8 more hits. He has 2 less homers, but he has 13 more RBIs. He has 4 more stolen bases. He's got 17 points of average over Dansby. Their OBPs are almost identical. Their OPSs are pretty similar. Again, it's almost like pick your poison. Maybe stolen bases and RBIs make the difference. But both are having great years. I just want to say I love that Dansby Swanson's finally hitting his stride. When he first came into the league, he struggled a little bit at the plate, and it seems like he's now kind of started to figure it out. We'll see if that lasts with contract this year and beyond. Yeah, contract year. That's true. He could be playing outside of Atlanta next year, but I've been a big fan of his game for a while. I'm glad that he's having a good year. I'd probably go with Turner for the All-Star nod, though.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's.
You took the words out of my mouth there. I mean, Dansby, #1 overall pick, who I really think has never lived up to that. And from what I remember from that draft year, he was a consensus #1 too. And it is good to see him start to really live up to that this year. He's been a solid player his whole career, but never a #1 overall. And we're seeing his best right now, so that is great to see.
For sure. Jason, you were gonna hop in there too?
No, I do think it's kind of maybe closer than the numbers kind of tell. I think Dansby defensively is grading out a decent bit better than Turner so far this year. Although Turner's great defensively. The RBIs, Turner does bat third in that lineup most of the time, and Dansby's a leadoff hitter, so that kind of has some say there. But yeah, I think Turner probably gets the edge, not by too much, but I do love that Dansby's hitting the stride, especially because Bregman likes to talk a lot of shit about that draft. So Bregman's, I think, batting about 230 this year. So that's good to see for Dansby.
Next up, we're going to shortstop in the AL. This one, our finalists are Bo Bichette and Tim Anderson. I'm going to make a case for Xander Bogaerts here, just fully biased. I actually don't think this is really a biased opinion. He's having probably, I think you could look at some of the statistics with Bichette and say maybe Bichette's performing better, but I think across the board, Bogaerts is having a better year. I would give Anderson my nod for this position. So we'll start with him. Tim Anderson hitting 340 at the moment, hitting in the leadoff spot for the White Sox. He was out for a little bit this year. He missed some time. But I mean, I've actually watched a decent amount of White Sox games recently. This guy plays with his hair on fire. I love the flair that he plays with, the attitude that he has. He's only got 5 homers, 19 RBIs, but again, he has a 340 average. He's got 10 stolen bases. He's got an OPS up around 830. Bichette, he's got an OPS at 720. He's hitting 250, but he's got 12 homers, 41 RBIs, and of course, you got to factor in his defense. This is the part where I talk about Xander Bogaerts. In 273 at-bats this year, he has 89 hits, more than both Bichette and Tim Anderson. He only has 6 home runs, which is the knock. He's got 31 RBIs, which you might not say is a lot, but it's only 10 less than Bichette. He's hitting at a 326 average, which is between Anderson and Bichette. Bichette's only getting on base 30% of the time. Bogaerts getting on base almost 40% of the time. He's got a 397 OBP right now as opposed to Bichette's 299. And then his OPS is at 866, which is higher than both Anderson and Bichette. Now, you can say what you want about Bogaerts' defense. He's not that great of a runner, but come on, man. Like, when's this guy going to get his respect as one of the best shortstops in the league and one of the best hitters in the league, too? I mean, what do we have to do? What do we have to do? Can you fellas help me out here or royally disagree?
Obviously, as a lifelong Yankee fan, I'm even going to say it. I don't really think it's close, and I think it's ridiculous, and this is going just on the stupid fan voting. Bichette shouldn't even be in the top 3, let alone number 1. I would have Xander above Tim Anderson as well. I mean, I know he only has 6 home runs, but he uses that wall as much as anybody and probably has 22, 23 doubles in the year, whatever he has. So, I mean, his slugging percentage is still there. And I think not only is he getting disrespected across the league, but even by his own team. I mean, they're offering him 15, 20 mil a year when he probably realistically could be getting high 20s, if not 30 a year for the next 6 to 8, maybe 10 years. So
that one hit me in the chest, but you're not wrong. You're not wrong, man. If we kept him in Boston, ideal scenario, give him 5-6 years, 6-year deal, have it front loaded, in my opinion. Reward him for his success now. Give him maybe an opt out after year 4 or something if he wants to try to get more money, but pay the freaking man. You put him in Boston for another 6 years, he could give you another ring, maybe 2. And if he does that, he's probably noted as one of the 3 or 4 greatest Red Sox of all time. If he does that, that's an if.
You said he's not great defensively, and that's kind of not a secret at this point, but he's not terrible. He just doesn't have that much range. Anybody in Fenway could play left field. I mean, Manny Ramirez did it for a number of years. I mean, you throw him in left field, they haven't had a good first baseman in how long? He could play either of those 2 positions in the latter half of his contract. So
if they move him, I think it would be more likely that they move him to third and push Devers across the diamond to first. So Bogaerts actually broke into the big leagues as a third baseman. He played there in 2013 when the Sox won the World Series. Some people have said to flip him and Story, put Story at short and Bogaerts at second. But right now, I know Story's not having a great offensive year. Story is, Alex Cora said the other day, I think he's probably the best defensive second baseman in baseball right now. And watching them play, he's making plays at second base. I haven't seen people make it Fenway since Pedroia, and he's even outdoing Pedroia a little bit. It's pretty incredible. But besides the point, Paul, do you have any arguments as to why the hell isn't Xander Bogaerts an all-star finalist in the AL? Tell me, Paul.
Well, I think it's mainly because, like you kind of alluded to, the Blue Jays fans seem to be really getting out there and voting. So I think, like, I personally think Tim Anderson belongs as the finalist, but
I'd agree.
why like Bo is second, I think, is why like I do not like the voting system for the All-Star game. That never really jived with me. It doesn't make sense. Like, it's just going to be like the bigger market teams or the team that's having a better year, like they're just going to vote for that player. So that I think is your most in a nutshell type answer for why Bogarts is not one of the top two finalists. I think you can certainly make an argument for him. I probably myself would put Bogarts, above Bichette as well. I see Bogarts play a little bit more, like you mentioned earlier in the podcast. I've been to a couple Red Sox games. I do really enjoy going to Fenway, and he is an electric player. So, I mean, I got no problem putting him there above Bichette. I think it's just, the voters vote. I mean, it's the system that we've had ever since I can remember, but it's not necessarily something I agree with.
Well, they did change it a couple of years ago. The finalists thing is pretty new, if I'm not mistaken. It used to they would just do the fan vote until a certain day, and then they would cap it, and then they would have an additional fan vote for the last spot on the bench or something, and the managers would fill out the rest. But I think it was 2 or 3 years ago. It might be slightly longer. I think it was 2 or 3 years ago. They started the finalists thing where they have the fan vote, and then you have the finalists, and then you do another vote. I kind of like the idea, but I feel like they need to figure out a way to come up with some kind of algorithm that balances out fan votes and votes from players and coaches. Find a cohesive and legitimate way of mixing all three, because yes, it should be important. You got to reward what the fans want to see. That's kind of the point of the All-Star game, and it always has been, more so than rewarding the individual seasons that the guys have. I think that those rewards come more so at the end of the year with like silver sluggers and gold gloves and that sort of thing. I would personally, if I was playing in the big leagues, I would rather win one of those awards than get an all-star vote, because there's more, there's less of a fan. I don't know. You get what I'm trying to say. Whereas what's the fix for this? Jason, you have any ideas? Paul, you guys have anything for what we could do to make it different?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I've heard different people say maybe have like 1 or 2 reserve spots as strictly fan voting. So
right,
the Bo Bichette's of the world, and not disrespecting him at all. He's a top 5 shortstop in the AL, but he's not a starter this year. We all know that. But maybe if fans want to get him or some other guys, votes, have 1 or 2 reserve spots. But in my opinion, I think those reserve spots should be for guys that maybe it might be their last opportunity, like Miguel Cabrera or Albert Pujols.
Yeah.
Because I'd like to see them get a kind of an honorary spot over a Bichette, who is probably going to make 6 or 7 more All-Star games. So.
The old Derek Jeter farewell tour.
Exactly. When Wainwright kind of put a 91-mile-per-hour fastball right down the middle. So.
Right. Yeah, right down the center. Paul, what's your All-Star voting fix, if you got one? Show me something.
You kind of mentioned it. I mean, the players and coaches, I think, should vote. And then I think that we should get like the beat writers and those guys in. The guys who vote for the Hall of Fame, I think, should also vote for the All-Star game. I don't know. I feel like if you can vote for a Hall of Famer, if you have that, power and that knowledge, you should also be able to vote and for the All-Stars. So maybe it's like you have a category for the players vote, you have a category for the coaches vote, and you have a category for the beat writers, or maybe you mash them all together and it's just, simple, the top 3 guys at, based on those tally of votes, they're the ones at that position. But I think you should involve the sports writers, because, they're the ones that cover everybody. And then, the players know each other, and the coaches obviously, see these guys play on a daily basis. That makes more sense to me than bringing in the fans or anything like that, who are probably more centralized on their team.
For sure. That's flawed too, though, because we've seen it with the Hall of Fame voting. The writers don't always get it right. Sometimes these guys have their own agendas and personal biases. So what is the true middle ground? Is it more votes for players, for coaches, or for like GMs or something? I don't know.
I think what you kind of can do is, going off Paul's point, is do like a 25% maybe with
like a whole coaches, like have writers, weighted votes basically.
Yeah, like players, coaches / front office, writers, and fans. I mean, that's way fans, you can still get a say, but you're not getting the whole say. So
I would love to talk with someone inside the room working the All-Star voting process, see what, if any, algorithms or weighting they actually use for voting. Because I bet they already do, and we just don't know about it. We got some more positions that we got to get through. I think the next one is probably the easiest. AL outfielders. We've got Aaron Judge, who by order of having the most votes among AL vote getters, he already has his spot in the All-Star game locked in. I still think Shohei would get a good amount of MVP votes at the moment. We can talk about that a little bit later if we want, but Judge is having an insane year. He's got to be a starter. Trout's having a great year as well. He's one of the finalists. I don't see a world where he's not starting in an All-Star game. And then the other three finalists for the outfield in the AL, George Springer, Giancarlo Stanton, and Lourdes Gurriel Jr. of the Toronto Blue Jays. Gurriel, not really a crazy year at the moment. He's kind of got that Blue Jays fan base thing going for him again. 4 homers, 33 RBIs. He's not hitting 300. He doesn't have an OPS above 750. Whereas Stanton is doing Giancarlo Stanton things. He's got 19 homers, 52 RBIs. He's hitting the ball out of the yard. He's a huge reason why the Yankees are as good as they are right now. And then George Springer, who's been probably the offensive leader and table setter for the Blue Jays this year outside of Vlad. He's just as important to them winning games, if not more so. 15 homers, 36 RBIs. He's getting on base 34% of the time. I feel like really the only argument you have is whether you value the defense and everything else that Springer brings versus Giancarlo Stanton just being Giancarlo Stanton. The designated hitter, that's a whole – I feel like I know he doesn't play DH a lot. I personally wish that you could throw Stanton as a DH in this list, but then Alvarez might beat him. So it's really pick your poison. I would probably go with Springer over Stanton though for my pick for that last outfielder.
Yeah, I would probably go Springer too, just as a more complete player.
Yeah.
One player that is kind of crazy that's not on there that I think is unbelievable from a lot of different aspects is Kyle Tucker.
Yep.
Dude has 10, 15 stolen bases. His OPS every year is 850 to 950.
Yep.
Lefty, great fielder. So
he flies under the radar too. He's not really talked about really enough, I feel like.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised to see him not on it, but yeah, I would go Springer probably as the third one.
Paul, what you got?
No, I think you guys hit the nail on the head with those outfielders. I don't really have anything to add except for ban the DH as a National League guy. That's about all I have to add.
We'll hop into the designated hitters for the AL next, I guess. It's Yordan Alvarez and Shohei Ohtani. Ohtani isn't having the same year he had last year, and Alvarez is hitting the cover off the ball. I think Shohei is going to make the All-Star game regardless, and I wish that we could see him pitch and hit again this year. We probably won't. It'll probably be Alvarez hitting, and then I think it's going to be either Shane McClanahan or Justin Verlander starting on the mound for the AL. But dude, Yordan Alvarez, what this guy terrifies me every time he's at the plate. First of all, he could probably turn me into a folding chair if he wanted. He's 6'5", 225 pounds. So he's only built like a defensive lineman. And then on top of that, he's hitting .316 with a .412 OBP, 23 homers, 56 RBIs. He's not just a power guy. He can drive the ball to all fields. I wish he got more conversation. I wish he was in the conversation more for one of the best hitters in baseball because he is. He's phenomenal. And he's going to be in Houston. I don't know how much team control he has left, but they're building that team around him. You can tell, especially with Correa getting a little, or Altuve, getting a little older. I think Bregman hits free agency in a couple of years. He's the best player on that Astros team, and it's not close.
He just got a pretty decent deal. I think he got 5 or 6 years.
Alvarez?
Yeah, I think like 25 a year or something like that, which is a decent amount for being 24 in DH. So
he got an extension? I didn't know that.
I think it was like 6 for 150, something like that.
I'm trying to find it now.
But yeah, I think it's Alvarez too, and I think he's kind of like a modern day Big Poppy type hitter, except bigger and stronger, if that's even possible. So or you can kind of compare him to like a left-handed Frank Thomas, just with his size and presence.
No, that's not even it. I see more Miggy in him because Pappy, while he had some years where he would hit 300 and drive the ball to all fields, he had a lot of years where he would strike out a bunch. He just had big holes in his swing, or it felt like he was trying to do nothing but hit homers. This guy Alvarez, it seems like he's never really trying to hit bombs. He just kind of accidentally does because of how good and how strong he is. Like Miggy, I remember in those Triple Crown years, it was like, it just seemed easy to him all the time. It was almost like he didn't even really have to try to swing. He could just put his bat there and the ball would just sort of end up somewhere and play on the grass. And Alvarez feels like the same thing to me every time I watch him hit, where it's just so damn easy for him. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah. And it's so impressive. He goes the opposite way, like so easy, and so many left center home runs. I mean,
that's why I rejected the Big Pappy comp, because he was a dead pull hitter his whole career, even with the monster there.
Yeah, and I mean, every at bat I haven't watched a ton of Astros games, but I mean, even against the Yankees, better pitchers, he's 8, 9, 10 pitch at bats every time. Even if he's not even getting a hit there, he's drawing walks. He's letting the guys behind him see pitches. So it's pretty impressive for a 24-year-old or however old he is. So,
next up, we'll go to the NLDH is a little bit weird because they're putting Bryce Harper and William Contreras in there. The Braves player. Harper's hurt right now, so I don't really know where that leads. Like maybe I guess even if Harper wins, depending on how long he's out for, Contreras gets thrown in there regardless. So we can skip that if you want, unless y'all want to give Harper some due. I know Jason, you're not really a huge fan of Harper as a individual, I guess, but I've been a huge fan of him for a long time, and he's having another great season.
Yeah, I mean, I've came around on him. I do think he just plays with a lot of fire and passion. I mean, early on, I think he kind of thought he was better than everybody in the league at the time when he wasn't, when he had some off years. But my whole thing was he came up and he was getting all the spotlight, and this other guy named Mike Trout was coming up basically at the same time, and I didn't even think they were comparable players.
Right.
Looking back on it, I still don't think they're very comparable players. While Harper could be an all-time great, Trout's on a different level, in my opinion, and you can disagree with me.
No, you're not wrong. You're not wrong.
In every single category, I mean, Trout's he kind of sets the bar everywhere. So, again, I do think Harper's on track to, again, probably be a Hall of Famer. And, I mean, I think if he didn't get hurt, it's a landslide with him at DH. So,
Paul, any love for Bryce Harper?
Yeah, I mean, I think he earned it. DeMar, I have a question for you. For the DH voting, or the DH, whatever you want to call it, they're not just strictly pulling from like hitters who are registered as DHs, right? Like it's just
that's what they're mainly doing. I think you have to register a certain amount of games played as a DH.
Oh, do you really?
I'm pretty sure.
I would have thought, I mean, I guess my inclination was wrong. I would have thought that they would have just kind of chosen like the next best hitter that wasn't a starter,
No, because Harper's been playing most of this year with a torn UCL, so he actually has been DHing most of the time.
Hey Paul, really quick. Michael Perez, 3 home runs tonight. Second straight night for a Bucko with 3 home runs.
Michael Perez with 3 bombs, huh?
Yeah.
That is certainly not something that you see every day. What's the score?
8-6 Pirates, top of the 9th, 2 outs. Brewers have the tying run on first at the moment.
Of course they do.
David Bednar, former future Boston Red Sox, trying to close it out right now.
You guys see that tweet? That reminds me of the Angels tweet. It's like Shohei and Trout go deep 7 times, and they're still
and then the Angels lose
15-4 or something.
Yeah.
Perez has 3 home runs, and they're still about to lose.
Paul, what were you gonna say?
No, I was just saying I could go into a whole podcast in and of itself about if we should trade Bednar or not, but I'm very fearful he has been overused this year. He is leading all of baseball in multi-inning saves. He has 6 of them.
Interesting stat.
He has just had to be a workhorse. And he's faltered a little bit as of late. I hope that the same doesn't happen tonight, but I think he's getting run down already here in the middle of the summer, which I'm fearful of because our manager has no idea how to manage a bullpen. That's just a side note. We can get back to our topics of discussion here.
Am I a better bullpen manager in club, Paul?
I didn't catch that, Jason.
I said, am I a better bullpen manager in club baseball?
You are a better manager in every aspect of the game.
Except I never put you in a game.
So this is the backstory for anybody who doesn't know the three of us. Jason, Paul, and I played on the club baseball team at an SEC college, and I don't know why I didn't name it. It's whatever.
D1 club,
Division I club baseball, and we were nationally ranked for a while there. And Jason was the head coach and president of the team at the time. Yeah, dude. Jason, hats off to you, dude. Hats off, man.
Hats off to me because I played my butt off for 5 years.
You played.
I was great at bats.
You played. So we're gonna move to the NL outfielders next. Ronald Acuna Jr., leading vote getter in the NL. He's got his spot locked up. Mookie Betts is a finalist in there. Jock Peterson is a finalist.
Is he not in the AL anymore?
No, Mookie. Damn it. I don't even know what to say. No, we traded it.
That was behaving. I really was.
That wasn't even, this was a couple of years ago, man. This is old news. Come up with something new.
Seems like you're still not over it, big guy.
It's just, I wasn't expecting it in the moment. Anyways, Mookie, Peterson, Starling Marte, and Adam Duvall are 4 finalists for the final 2 outfield spots in the NL. Mookie, I think, he's having a great year. He's kind of back to form after a down year last year. Jock's having a good year. So is Marte. Duvall, I don't really think belongs in this conversation as much. I mean, he's hitting like 205. Sure, he's got 10 bombs, but he's got an OPS under 650, actually. I think this is kind of carryover from the World Series last year. Really, the argument is between whether you want Jock Peterson or Starling Marte. It's tough again, and maybe Jock has some all-star votes coming kind of in a roundabout way from the Braves thing from last year, but he's having a hell of a season. 276 average. He's got an OPS above 930, 17 homers, 39 RBIs. He's not really hitting against lefties much. Do without what you want. Marte, though, for the Mets playing in New York, big part of the reason why they're having the season they're having. I believe he's the leadoff hitter for them. I believe. I may be mistaken. He's playing good defense.
Usually him or Nemo.
Yeah, I was about to say. I think it's got to be Jock, though, for the last spot. I mean, his numbers across the board are just – his offensive numbers are far better. Far better. It's Jock.
Yeah, I mean, I think – and I'm going to give Paul some love over here. I think Brian Reynolds should be in the conversation.
Agreed.
I think guys like Ian Happ should be in the conversation. I think even Brandon Nimmo should be in the conversation. But I think Jock, Mookie, and Acuna, everybody could be happy with there.
It's got to be. Paul, any objections?
Well, yeah, no, I appreciate you giving Brian Reynolds a shout out. Just as someone who watches Brian Reynolds play every day, he was on a torrid pace in June, and his average has climbed up into the 260s now. He had 3 home runs yesterday, but his month of April and May was just such a slow start that he's not going to get the love for the All-Star game this year. But I do appreciate you throwing his name out there. I guarantee by the end of the year, his stat line is going to be a top 3 or top 5 in the NL among outfielders. I'm also, a homer for Starling Marte, just, because he broke into the league with the Pirates. And as someone who's watched baseball since he's 5, I arguably say that Marte has some of maybe the best tools that I've ever seen in a player. His head wasn't always in it in Pittsburgh, but the speed, the arm, the ability for power, it's all there. He's one hell of a ball player, but I think Jock's stat line is going to win it for him this year. And the other thing about Marte is, I was looking at his numbers a little bit before this. His stolen bases are pretty down this year. I think he only has 8.
Yeah,
which I was extremely surprised with, that he's not swiping bags at a higher clip. So that would be the one category where he could leap Jock. And, that could really make an argument for him. But since that number's down, I think Jock is a pretty safe bet for that third spot over him.
All right. We pretty much hit on all the positions. You guys want to talk about starting pitchers? Or do you want
to hit on that real quick?
I do want to get into our next segment, the top 5 most influential players of all time, but we'll hit on pitchers really quick. NL, I think look, you could make an argument for a couple of guys in the NL if you really want to. But if you look at who's leading all of Major League Baseball in WAR right now, it's one pitcher, and it's not someone who you would normally throw into this either. It's Sandy Alcantara of the Miami Marlins. He lately has been dominant. Like, there's no other word to use. He's averaging over 8 innings pitched in his last 10 starts. He leads all of baseball in WAR. He's got, I need to pull up his stats again, but he's having an absolutely incredible year for the Miami Marlins. Absolutely incredible. Trying to pull up these.
Paid $10 million a year too. They signed him for, I think, 4 years, $40 million. So absolute steal of a contract.
Yeah, seriously. I mean,
I watched him pitch, I think, last year or 2 years ago in Miami, and I mean, he is just a massive dude too. He's a workhorse.
I mean, like, can you even really? Tony Gonsolin's been pitching well for the Dodgers. Like,
but he probably averages less than 6 innings a start. I mean, he doesn't go super deep into games. He is great, but
Musgrove's been great for the Padres. Corbin Burns.
Musgrove, I believe, I was going to mention his name tomorrow. If you've got the stats, I believe Musgrove is leading at least the National League, maybe all of baseball in quality starts. That's a more recent stat, and I don't know how much both of you guys value that, but that's with pitchers not going as deep into games, that's becoming, I think, a more important thing, and I'm pretty sure Musgrove is leading in that statistic. So
I have them side by side right now. Musgrove and Alcantara both have 12 quality starts. Tied for second in all of baseball behind Alek Manoah and Framber Valdez, who both have 13.
I love Framber.
Framber's great. He shut out the Sox in the ALCS last year. Don't want to talk about it. Musgrove 13 starts, Alcantara 16. Alcantara has an 8-3 record. Musgrove 8-1. Alcantara has 2 complete games. Musgrove has none. Alcantara has thrown 30 more innings than Musgrove. He's only allowed 5 more earned runs. He's allowed 1 less homer. He's struck out 17 more batters. He has an ERA at 1.95. Musgrove's is at 2.12.
He got rocked last time out, Musgrove, and he's facing the Dodgers tonight. So
yeah, other stats. I'm about to turn on that Dodgers game in a moment. Pirates won, by the way, Paul. 8-7 the final score.
Awesome.
Raise it, Paul.
203 batting average.
31
allowed.
Wins, baby.
31 wins. Yeah, Alcantara's got basically slightly better numbers across the board, just by a hair. He's really turned it up, and that's huge for the Marlins organization, what he's been doing.
Yeah, and I mean, the fact that he actually has a shot at winning 20 games with the Marlins team this year, I mean, that is absolutely insane. I mean, Felix used to win 10, 11 games, or DeGrom on bad Mets teams used to win 10 or 11 games. I mean, what he's doing is crazy on a mediocre team.
And then on the flip side for the AL, again, I think it's a 2-horse race pretty much. You can maybe throw some other names in there if you want, but it's going to come down to either Shane McClanahan or the veteran, Mr. Spin Rate himself, Justin Verlander. Verlander, 10 wins in the league, most in the league, 2.03 ERA. McClanahan's is better. He's got 1.77. McClanahan has 30 more strikeouts than Verlander. He's got a much higher strikeout per 9. He's got a much better strikeout per walk. Their batting average against is pretty much identical. It's really just a matter of whether you value the workload that Verlander is putting in more than McClanahan's, because Verlander has pitched more innings by a decent amount.
Yeah, I mean, I'm giving it to McClanahan just based on his overall stuff and his success with that team. I mean, Also, just nice to see a young guy coming in on the scene.
Somebody
I
new.
think you could easily throw Manoah in there too.
Yep.
Even Perez out of nowhere goes from a 4 with the Sox to a 2-1 or whatever. But mine is McClanahan. But that's another one that can't go wrong with either one.
I think it's McClanahan too. I think so. Paul, anything?
Yeah, I'd like to see McClanahan at least. Verlander started in the All-Star game before, and like you don't want to make a decision just because a guy's been there before. So let's give it to the younger guy if he's not deserving. But I think he's deserving this year. His ERA still in the ones?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I got to give it to him. Love to see that. So he's my vote.
Also, I think pitching in the AL East with the ballparks, the hitting teams is a lot harder than pitching in the AL West. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's great hitters in that division, but they're bigger ballparks. The bottom of the orders aren't as good. So I think you got to factor that in as well.
That's a great point. Great point. We're going to take a short break. One last segment when we come back.